The gunshot cracked through the evening air like a whip, and Helena Sawyer dropped the water bucket she had been carrying, her heart hammering against her ribs as she watched 3 riders emerge from the tree line at the edge of her property. She knew immediately that they were not passing through, not with the way they fanned out across the clearing in front of her small cabin, their rifles catching the dying light of the sun. It was October 1883 in the wild country outside Cody, Wyoming, and trouble had finally found her after 6 months of peaceful solitude. Helena had come to Wyoming territory to escape her past, to build something new in a place where nobody knew her name or the circumstances that had driven her from Kansas. She was 22 years old, with auburn hair that she kept tied back in a practical braid and gray eyes that had learned to read danger in the faces of men. The cabin was modest but sturdy, built by a prospector who had given up on finding gold in these hills and sold it to her for a price she could barely afford. She had made it a home, though, with curtains in the windows and a garden that had yielded enough vegetables to see her through the coming winter. The lead rider was a man she recognized from town, a cruel-faced brute named Jack Donnelly, who ran with a gang of outlaws that plagued the territory between here and Montana. He had tried to speak to her once in Cody when she had gone in for supplies, and she had made the mistake of refusing him too sharply, too publicly. She had seen the anger flash in his eyes then, the kind of rage that men like him nursed until they could exact their revenge. "Evening, Miss Sawyer," Donnelly called out, his voice carrying an edge of mockery that made her skin crawl. "We have come to discuss your property situation. You see, we have decided this cabin would make an excellent shelter for our operations, and we would like you to vacate it tonight." Helena stood her ground on the porch, though every instinct screamed at her to run inside and bar the door. She knew that showing fear would only make things worse. "This is my land, legally purchased and registered with the territorial office. You have no claim here." Donnelly laughed, a sound without humor. "Legal claims do not mean much out here, sweetheart. What matters is who has the guns and the will to use them. Now you can leave peacefully, or we can make this difficult." The other 2 men had dismounted now, moving to flank the cabin on either side. Helena recognized one of them as well, a scarred man called Turner who had a reputation for violence that made even other outlaws wary. Her hand moved slowly toward the rifle she kept propped just inside the doorway, but Donnelly saw the movement and his own weapon came up in warning. "I would not do that if I were you. We are not here to kill you, just to relocate you. But if you insist on being difficult, well, accidents happen in these wild lands." Helena's mind raced through her options. She could try to fight, but 3 armed men against 1 woman would end only one way. She could try to run, but they would catch her before she made it 50 yards into the darkening forest. She could comply and hope they would let her go, but she doubted men like these would simply allow her to walk away with everything she knew about their plans. It was then that she heard it, distant but distinct, the sound of a horse being ridden hard through the darkness that was settling over the land. The outlaws heard it too, their attention shifting toward the trail that led north from town. Donnelly cursed under his breath and gestured to his men to take positions. "Expecting company?" he asked Helena, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. "No," she said truthfully, though hope was beginning to kindle in her chest. She had made few friends in Cody, preferring to keep to herself, but there was one man who had shown her kindness without expecting anything in return. Cole Patterson was a cowboy who worked on one of the larger ranches to the south. A quiet man in his mid-20s with sun-bronzed skin and dark hair that he kept short under his worn Stetson. He had helped her once when her wagon had broken down on the road to town, refusing payment and simply tipping his hat before riding away. She had seen him a few times since then, and each time there had been something in his eyes when he looked at her, something that made her heart beat a little faster. But Cole had no reason to be riding out to her cabin at dusk, no way of knowing she was in danger. Unless someone in town had seen the outlaws heading this direction and had gone for help. The sound of hoofbeats grew louder, coming fast and hard. Whoever was riding was pushing their horse to the limit, and as the rider burst into the clearing, Helena felt her breath catch. It was Cole Patterson, his horse lathered with sweat and heaving, his face set in grim determination as he took in the scene before him. "Helena," he called out, his voice sharp with urgency. "Get inside now." Donnelly swung his rifle toward Cole, but the cowboy was already moving, sliding from his saddle with practiced ease and using his horse as cover. "This does not concern you, Patterson. Ride away while you still can." "It concerns me when 3 armed men threaten a woman on her own land," Cole replied, his hand resting on the revolver at his hip. "And I recognize you, Donnelly. I know what you and your gang are wanted for. The territorial marshal has been looking for you since that stagecoach robbery last month." Helena used the distraction to dart inside her cabin, grabbing her rifle and checking that it was loaded. Through the window, she could see Cole standing his ground, facing down 3 men without flinching. It was either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish, and she was not sure which. "How did you know?" she called out to him through the window. "Old Tom at the livery saw these 3 heading out this way," Cole answered, his eyes never leaving the outlaws. "He knew you were out here alone and came to find me. I have been riding for the last hour to get here." 40 miles, Helena realized with a jolt. The ranch where Cole worked was nearly 40 miles south of her cabin. He had ridden 40 miles through the gathering dark to reach her, to warn her, to help her. The knowledge of it settled into her chest like a warm weight. "Touching," Donnelly sneered. "The cowboy plays hero. But you are still outnumbered, Patterson, and I am not inclined to let you interfere with our business. Maybe we will just kill you both and be done with it." The air was thick with tension, every man's hand on their weapon, waiting for someone to make the first move. Helena could see the calculation in Cole's eyes, the way he was measuring distances and angles, looking for an advantage that did not exist. She made her own decision in that moment, raising her rifle to her shoulder and sighting down the barrel at Turner, who stood nearest to Cole. "Maybe the odds are not as bad as you think," she said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "I am a decent shot, and at this range I will not miss." Donnelly's expression darkened. "This is your last chance, both of you. Ride away now, forget you ever saw us here, and we will let you live." "And leave Helena defenseless," Cole shook his head. "Not a chance. You want this cabin, you will have to go through both of us." The standoff stretched out, seconds feeling like hours. Helena could see the wheels turning in Donnelly's mind, weighing the potential gain against the risk. 2 people willing to fight back changed the equation, made the cost of taking the cabin potentially too high. It was the 3rd outlaw, a younger man who had not yet spoken, who broke first. "Jack, this is not worth it. There are other places we can use. Let us just go." "Shut up, Billy," Donnelly snapped, but Helena could see the hesitation creeping into his posture. He was a bully and a killer, but he was not stupid. A gunfight here would be loud and messy, and even if he won, there was a good chance he would lose at least 1 man. And Cole had mentioned the territorial marshal, which meant someone knew they were here. Finally, with a curse that blistered the air, Donnelly lowered his rifle. "This is not over, Patterson. You have made an enemy today." "I will take my chances," Cole replied evenly. The 3 outlaws mounted their horses and rode back into the gathering darkness, but not before Donnelly shot one last venomous look at Helena. "You should have taken my offer when you had the chance, Miss Sawyer. Next time, you might not have a knight in shining armor to save you." Helena waited until the sound of hoofbeats had faded completely before lowering her rifle, her hands beginning to shake with the aftermath of adrenaline. Cole was already moving toward the cabin, his own tension easing but not disappearing entirely. "Are you all right?" he asked as she stepped out onto the porch. "I am now," she said, meeting his eyes. "Thank you. If you had not come when you did, I do not know what would have happened." Cole removed his hat, running a hand through his sweat-dampened hair. "Tom said they looked like they meant business. I rode as hard as I could. My horse will need rest before I can head back." "Of course," Helena said quickly. "Please come inside. I can make coffee, and there is stew left over from supper. It is the least I can do after you rode all this way." The cabin was small but clean, with a stone fireplace that took up most of one wall and a simple wooden table with 2 chairs. Helena's few possessions were neatly arranged, giving the space a lived-in warmth despite its modest size. Cole settled into one of the chairs while Helena poured coffee from the pot that still sat near the fire, her hands steadier now. 40 miles, she said softly, setting the cup in front of him. "Tom said your ranch is nearly 40 miles from here." "Give or take," Cole acknowledged, wrapping his hands around the warm cup. "I did not think about the distance, I just knew you needed help." Helena sat down across from him, studying his face in the lamplight. There were lines of exhaustion around his eyes, and she could see the dust of hard travel on his clothes. "You did not even know for certain that I was in trouble. You just took Tom's word and rode out into the dark." "Tom has good instincts about people," Cole said. "And I have seen Donnelly and his gang before. They are not the kind of men who pay social calls." He paused, then added quietly, "Besides, I would not forgive myself if something happened to you and I had not at least tried to help." There was something in the way he said it, a weight of feeling behind the simple words that made Helena's heart skip. She had spent the last 6 months keeping people at arm's length, afraid of letting anyone get too close, afraid of being hurt again. But Cole had ridden 40 miles through the dark for her, had put himself in danger without hesitation, and she could not ignore what that meant. "Why?" she asked, the question barely more than a whisper. "You barely know me." Cole met her gaze, and in his eyes she saw honesty and something else, something that made her breath catch. "Maybe I would like to know you better, if you would let me. I have been thinking about you since the day I helped with your wagon. The way you thanked me but did not simper or play helpless, the way you had already tried to fix it yourself before I came along. You are strong, Helena. Independent. But everybody needs help sometimes, and I would like to be someone you can count on." Helena felt tears prick at her eyes, unexpected and unwelcome. She blinked them back, not wanting to appear weak, but one escaped anyway, trailing down her cheek. Cole reached across the table, his calloused hand covering hers with surprising gentleness. "Did I say something wrong?" he asked, concerned. "No," she managed, her voice thick. "You said something very right. I just have not heard words like that in a long time. The last man who claimed to care about me used those feelings as a weapon, as a way to control me. That is why I came to Wyoming, to get away from him and the life he wanted to trap me in." Cole's jaw tightened. "He hurt you." It was not a question, but Helena nodded anyway. "Not in the way you are thinking, not physically. But there are other ways to hurt someone, ways that leave marks that do not show. He wanted me to be something I was not, to fit into a mold he had created. When I refused, when I tried to leave, he made things very difficult. It took me 2 years to save enough money to buy my ticket west and this cabin. 2 years of planning and hiding and being afraid." "You do not have to be afraid anymore," Cole said firmly. I am not that kind of man, Helena. I will not try to control you or change you. But I would like to be in your life if you will let me. We can take it slow, get to know each other proper. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people seeing where things might lead. Helena turned her hand over, lacing her fingers through his. His hand was warm and strong, the hand of a man who knew hard work and was not afraid of it. I would like that, she said softly. But you should know. Donnelly meant what he said. He will come back, and next time he might bring more men. Being associated with me could put you in danger. Let him come, Cole said, a hint of steel in his voice. I am not afraid of Jack Donnelly or his gang, and if he does come back, I will make sure the marshal knows about it. There is law in this territory, even if it takes time to reach out here. Donnelly and his men will face justice eventually. They talked long into the night, the coffee growing cold as they shared stories of their lives. Cole told her about growing up on a ranch in Texas, learning to ride and rope before he could read, and how he had come north to Wyoming after his parents died, looking for a fresh start. He spoke of the simple pleasures of his work, the satisfaction of a job well done, the beauty of the land even in its harshness. Helena found herself opening up in ways she had not expected, telling him about her childhood in Missouri, her love of reading and learning that had marked her as different in a small town where women were expected to marry young and ask no questions. She told him about the man she had almost married, how his initial charm had slowly revealed itself as a need to possess, to control, to diminish anything that did not serve his ego. I promised myself I would never let anyone have that kind of power over me again, she said, as the fire burned low. That is why I have kept to myself since coming here. It seemed safer. Safety is important, Cole agreed. But so is living, really living. You cannot shut yourself away forever, Helena. Some people are worth the risk of opening up. Are you worth the risk, Cole Patterson? She asked, a slight smile playing at her lips. He grinned, the expression transforming his usually serious face. I would like to think so, but I suppose you will have to decide that for yourself. By the time Cole finally prepared to leave, it was well past midnight. His horse had rested and grazed on the grass near the cabin, and though the animal was tired, it could make the journey back to the ranch at a slower pace. Cole stood by his horse, one hand on the saddle, looking back at Helena where she stood in the doorway. I will come back in a few days to check on you, he said, and I am going to talk to the marshal about Donnelly. He should know they are operating in this area. Be careful, Helena urged. These are dangerous men. So am I when I need to be, Cole said, swinging into the saddle. Lock your door tonight and keep your rifle close. If you see any sign of them coming back before I return, fire 3 shots into the air. The Hensley Ranch is about 5 miles west of here, and they will hear it. Helena nodded, committing the information to memory. As Cole turned his horse toward the trail, she called out to him. Cole, thank you again, for everything. He touched the brim of his hat in that familiar gesture. Get some rest, Helena. I will see you soon. She watched until he disappeared into the darkness, then went inside and barred the door as he had instructed. The cabin felt emptier than it ever had before, and she realized with a start that she was already counting the hours until she would see him again. Over the next few days, Helena went about her usual routines with a new awareness of her surroundings. She checked the horizon frequently for signs of riders, and she made sure her rifle was always within reach. But the outlaws did not return, and gradually she began to relax, to believe that perhaps Donnelly had decided she was not worth the trouble after all. Cole came back on the 3rd day, riding up in the afternoon with supplies he had brought from town. He had spoken with the territorial marshal, he told her, and the lawman had promised to increase patrols in the area. There was also a reward posted for Donnelly and his gang, which meant every bounty hunter in the territory would be looking for them. "They will likely lay low for a while," Cole said as he helped her carry the supplies inside. "But we should not take any chances. I was thinking, if you are agreeable, I could build a small shelter for my horse near your cabin. That way I could stay over sometimes. Make sure you are not alone if they do decide to cause trouble." Helena considered the offer carefully. Having Cole nearby would certainly make her feel safer, but she was also aware of how such an arrangement might look to others. In a small community like Cody, reputation mattered, especially for a woman on her own. Cole seemed to read her thoughts. "I would sleep in the shelter with my horse," he clarified quickly. "Or I could bunk on your porch if the weather is decent. I am not suggesting anything improper, Helena. I just want to make sure you are protected." "I know," she said, touched by his concern for her reputation as much as her safety. "And I appreciate it, but I do not want you to disrupt your whole life because of me. You have work at the ranch, responsibilities." "I spoke with my boss, Mr. Harrison. He understands the situation, and he said I could adjust my schedule. Most of my work is riding fence lines and checking on cattle, which I can do from here just as easily as from the ranch. There is good grazing land in these hills." They compromised on a plan where Cole would spend 3 nights a week at Helena's cabin, sleeping in a small lean-to he would build against the side of the structure. On the other nights, he would be at the ranch, but Helena would keep a lantern burning in her window as a signal that all was well. If the lantern was not lit, it would mean she needed help. As Cole worked on building the lean-to, Helena found herself watching him from the cabin window, admiring the easy strength with which he handled the timber and tools. He worked with a steady competence that spoke of years of experience, and he clearly took pride in doing the job right. When he paused to wipe sweat from his brow, she brought him water and they talked easily, the conversation flowing naturally between them. "Tell me about Texas," she said, sitting on the porch step while he worked. "What was it like growing up there?" Cole's expression grew distant with memory. "Hot mostly," he said with a slight smile, "and dry at least where we were. My father ran a small ranch, nothing fancy, but it was enough to support us. I learned everything from him, how to read the weather, how to gentle a horse, how to find water in land that looked bone dry. He was a good man, patient with teaching. My mother was the strong one, though. She kept us all in line, made sure I got some schooling even when I would rather have been out riding." "You miss them," Helena observed gently. "Every day," Cole admitted. "They died within 6 months of each other, my father from a fall off a horse that broke his back, my mother from fever. After that I could not stay. Everything reminded me of them and it hurt too much, so I sold the ranch and came north, figuring I would start over somewhere new." "Do you regret it, selling the ranch?" Cole was quiet for a moment, measuring a piece of timber. "Sometimes. But then I think about what I have found here and the regret fades. Wyoming is beautiful in a different way than Texas, wilder maybe, and I have met people here worth knowing." He glanced up at her, and the look in his eyes made her pulse quicken. "You, for instance." Helena felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she did not look away. "I am glad you came north, Cole Patterson, even if the circumstances that brought us together were not ideal. Sometimes the best things come from difficult situations," Cole said. "My mother used to say that gold has to go through fire before it is pure. Maybe people are the same way." The lean-to took shape over the course of 2 days, a sturdy structure with a slanted roof that would keep Cole and his horse dry during rain or snow. Cole added a small stove for heat and a simple cot with blankets, making the space comfortable if not luxurious. When it was finished, Helena insisted he come inside for a proper meal to celebrate. She had made fried chicken and biscuits, using the last of the flour from her supplies and splurging on the fat needed for frying. It was the best meal she could manage, and she wanted it to be special, a way of thanking Cole for all he had done. She set the table with care, using the good dishes she rarely touched, and even picked some late-blooming wildflowers to put in a jar as a centerpiece. Cole's eyes widened when he came inside and saw the spread. "Helena, you did not have to go to all this trouble." "I wanted to," she said simply. "You have done so much for me. This is a small thing in comparison." They ate by lamplight, the food delicious and the conversation even better. Helena discovered that Cole had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard and made her laugh, something she had not done nearly enough in recent months. He told stories of mishaps on the ranch, of ornery cattle and horses with minds of their own, painting pictures with his words that brought the tales to life. In turn, Helena told him about the books she loved, the worlds of imagination that had been her escape during difficult times. Cole listened with genuine interest, asking questions and seeming to truly care about her answers. It was so different from the dismissive attitude of the man she had left behind, who had viewed her love of reading as a waste of time and had tried to discourage it. After dinner, they sat on the porch together, watching the stars emerge in the vast Wyoming sky. The air was crisp with the promise of winter, and Helena wrapped a shawl around her shoulders against the chill. Cole sat close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him, but he maintained a respectful distance, never presuming. "This is nice," Helena said softly. "Peaceful." "It is," Cole agreed. "I have spent most of my life outdoors, but there is something special about this spot." "Maybe it is the company." Helena turned to look at him, her heart full of feelings she was still learning to trust. "Cole, can I ask you something? Anything?" "Why me? There must be other women in Cody who have caught your eye, women who do not come with the kind of trouble I bring." Cole was quiet for a long moment, his gaze on the stars. When he spoke, his voice was low and sincere. "When I first saw you struggling with that wagon, you know what struck me? You were not crying or wringing your hands or waiting for someone to rescue you. You were under that wagon, trying to fix the axle yourself, even though you clearly did not have the right tools or the strength to lift it alone. You were covered in dust and grease, and you looked frustrated as hell, but you were not giving up." He turned to face her, and in the starlight his eyes were dark and intense. "That is when I knew you were different. You are strong, Helena, not just in body but in spirit. You have been through things that would break other people, but you keep going. You built a life here from nothing, and you are not afraid to defend it. How could I not admire that? How could I not want to know the woman behind that kind of courage?" Helena felt tears threatening again, but this time they were tears of joy, of relief, of finally being seen for who she truly was. "I am not always strong," she whispered. "Sometimes I am afraid." "Being afraid does not make you weak," Cole said, reaching out to take her hand. "It makes you human." "But facing your fear and doing what needs to be done anyway, that is real strength." They sat in comfortable silence for a while longer, hands clasped, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, as the night grew late and the chill deepened, Cole stood and helped Helena to her feet. "I should let you get some rest," he said. "I will be right here if you need anything. Just call out." "Good night, Cole," Helena said, reluctant to let go of his hand. "Good night, Helena," he replied, and there was a tenderness in his voice that wrapped around her like a blanket. The weeks that followed fell into a comfortable pattern. Cole came and went according to their schedule, always arriving with some small gift, food from town or wildflowers, or once, a book he had ordered special from a catalog because she had mentioned liking the author. They spent their evenings talking and laughing. sometimes working together on projects around the cabin, other times simply enjoying each other's company in comfortable silence. Helena found herself looking forward to Cole's visits with an intensity that both thrilled and frightened her. She had promised herself she would not fall in love again, would not give anyone the power to hurt her. But Cole was making it impossible to keep that promise. Every kindness, every gentle word, every respectful gesture chipped away at the walls she had built around her heart. One evening in early November, as the first snow of the season began to fall, Helena made a decision. She had been stirring stew over the fire when Cole came in from tending his horse, stamping snow from his boots. He looked so natural in her cabin, so right, that something inside her shifted and settled. "Cole," she said, setting down the spoon, "come here." He approached, concern flickering across his face. "What is it? Is something wrong?" Instead of answering, Helena reached up and cupped his face in her hands, feeling the slight rasp of stubble against her palms. "Nothing is wrong," she said softly. "Everything is right. I just wanted you to know that." Understanding dawned in Cole's eyes, followed by something deeper, something that made Helena's breath catch. "Helena," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "can I kiss you?" She answered by pulling him down to her, their lips meeting in a kiss that was gentle at first, then deepening as weeks of longing found expression. Cole's arms came around her, holding her close but not too tight, always careful of her comfort, her consent. Helena melted into the embrace, feeling safe and cherished in a way she had never experienced before. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Cole rested his forehead against hers. "I have been wanting to do that for weeks," he admitted. "So have I," Helena said, smiling up at him. "I was just afraid. And now I think I am ready to stop being afraid. I am ready to trust again, to believe that not all men are like the one I left behind. You have shown me that, Cole. You have been patient and kind and respectful, and you have never asked for more than I was willing to give. That means everything to me." Cole pulled back slightly, needing to see her face. "I want you to know, Helena, I am serious about you. This is not some passing fancy for me. I am falling in love with you, have been since the moment I met you. I know it is fast, and I know you have been hurt, but I need you to know where my heart is." Helena felt tears slide down her cheeks, but they were tears of happiness. "I am falling in love with you too," she whispered. "It terrifies me, but I cannot deny it anymore. You have become essential to me, Cole. When you are not here, I count the hours until you return. When you are here, I feel complete in a way I never have before." They kissed again, slower this time, savoring the moment. Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in white. But inside the cabin it was warm and bright with the glow of new love acknowledged and reciprocated. Over dinner, they talked about the future, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence. Cole wanted to make their arrangement permanent, wanted to move out to the cabin full-time if Helena would have him. He could still work for Mr. Harrison, using Helena's land as a base for checking the ranch's cattle in the surrounding hills. "Eventually, I would like to buy some land of my own," Cole said. "Maybe expand your property, build up a small herd, nothing fancy but enough to support a family someday." He paused, then added carefully, "If that is something you would want." "A family," Helena repeated, testing the words. She had always wanted children, but her previous relationship had soured her on the idea of marriage and everything that came with it. With Cole, though, she found herself reconsidering, imagining a life built together, children with his dark hair and her gray eyes. "Someday," she said firmly. "Let us take our time, Cole. I want to be sure, completely sure, before we make that kind of commitment. Not because I doubt you, but because I need to be certain in my own heart." "I understand," Cole said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "We will go at your pace, Helena. Always." I am not going anywhere." True to his word, Cole moved into the cabin gradually, first spending every night in the lean-to, then, as their relationship deepened, being invited inside during the coldest nights to sleep by the fire. They maintained separate sleeping arrangements, respecting the boundaries that Helena needed to feel comfortable. But the intimacy between them grew in other ways, in shared glances and gentle touches, in the easy domesticity of cooking meals together and talking about their days. The threat of Donnelly and his gang seemed to have passed. No one had seen them in the area for weeks, and rumor had it they had moved their operations north into Montana. The territorial marshal had raided several of their known hideouts, making the region too hot for them to operate comfortably. Cole remained vigilant, but Helena began to relax, to believe that perhaps the worst was truly behind them. Winter set in hard that year, with snow piling high around the cabin and temperatures that made even stepping outside an ordeal. Helena was grateful for Cole's presence, for the extra firewood he cut and stacked, for his strength in maintaining paths to the lean-to, and the small barn where they kept their horses. They were snowed in for weeks at a time, but Helena found she did not mind. There was something magical about being isolated from the world with the man she loved, about creating their own small universe inside the cabin walls. They read together by firelight, Cole slowly working his way through books that challenged him, but that he tackled with determination, because Helena loved them. She taught him about poetry and philosophy, while he taught her practical skills like mending harness leather and identifying animal tracks in the snow. They were building a life together, piece by piece, learning each other's rhythms and preferences. On Christmas Eve, Cole surprised Helena with a gift he had carved himself, a delicate wooden box with her initials worked into the lid. Inside were wildflower seeds he had collected during the summer, dried and preserved for spring planting. "I thought you might like to expand your garden," he said, looking almost shy. "I noticed you like flowers as much as vegetables." Helena was so moved she could barely speak. The gift was perfect, thoughtful and personal, and made with his own hands. She gave him the present she had been working on in secret, a shirt she had sewn from fabric she had traded for in town, using measurements she had sneaked while mending his other clothes. Cole's face lit up when he saw it. "Helena, this is beautiful. You made this." "I wanted you to have something special," she said. "Something that came from me." They sat together by the fire that night, closer than they had ever been, and Helena knew with certainty that this was right. Cole was right. What they had together was worth fighting for, worth taking the risk of opening her heart again. As winter slowly gave way to spring, Helena made her decision. She loved Cole, trusted him completely, and she was ready to commit to building a life with him. On a warm afternoon in April, with wildflowers blooming across the meadow and the world bursting into green life, she told him. They were working in the garden, planting the seeds Cole had given her, when Helena set down her trowel and turned to him. "Cole, I have something to ask you." He looked up from the row he was digging, wiping dirt from his hands. "What is it?" Helena took a deep breath, her heart pounding. "I want you to know that I am sure now, sure about us, about what I want. I love you, Cole Patterson, and I want to spend my life with you. I want to build something lasting here together. I want to marry you if you will have me." Cole stared at her for a moment, shock written across his face. Then a slow smile spread, transforming his features with pure joy. "If I will have you," he repeated, his voice thick with emotion. "Helena, I have been wanting to ask you the same thing for months. I just did not want to rush you, did not want to push before you were ready." He got to his feet, pulling her up with him, and then he was on one knee in the dirt of the garden, holding her hands in his. "Helena Sawyer, You are the strongest, bravest, most wonderful woman I have ever known. You have made me happier than I ever thought possible. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" "Yes," Helena said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Cole surged to his feet and swept her into his arms, spinning her around while she laughed with pure joy. When he set her down, they kissed deeply, sealing the promise they had made to each other. They were married in June, in a simple ceremony in Cody with a handful of friends as witnesses. Helena wore a dress of pale blue that brought out her eyes, and Cole wore his new shirt with pride. The local minister performed the ceremony in the small church, and afterward they had a celebration at the town's only restaurant, where Mr. Harrison gave a toast that made Helena blush and Cole laugh. The ride back to the cabin that evening, now truly their cabin, felt different. They were husband and wife now, partners in every sense of the word. That night, as they came together as man and wife for the first time, Helena felt truly free for the first time in years. All the fear and pain of the past finally released in the joy of belonging completely to someone who cherished her. The following months were the happiest of Helena's life. She and Cole worked side by side to improve their property, building a proper barn and adding rooms to the cabin, in anticipation of the family they both wanted. Cole bought a small herd of cattle with money he had saved, and Helena's garden flourished, providing vegetables they sold in town for extra income. By autumn, Helena realized she was pregnant. The discovery filled her with a mixture of joy and terror, but Cole's steady presence and obvious delight helped ease her fears. He was attentive to her needs, insisting she rest when she grew tired, taking on more of the heavy work around the property. Their son was born the following spring, in April of 1885, a healthy boy with his father's dark hair and a set of lungs that announced his arrival with authority. They named him James after Cole's father, and Cole held his son with tears streaming down his face, overwhelmed with the reality of fatherhood. "He is perfect," Cole whispered, his voice choked. "You are perfect. I love you so much, Helena." "I love you too," Helena said, exhausted but radiant with happiness. "We did good, did we not?" "We did amazing," Cole agreed, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Life settled into a new rhythm with a baby in the house. Sleep became a precious commodity, and the work of the ranch had to be balanced with the demands of caring for an infant. But Helena and Cole adapted, working as a team the way they always had. Cole proved to be a devoted father, taking James with him on rides around the property as soon as the baby was old enough, teaching him about the land and the animals with the same patience his own father had shown him. 2 years later, Helena gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Rose. She had her mother's auburn hair and her father's dark eyes, and from the moment she could walk, she was following her older brother around, determined to do everything he could do. Cole doted on both his children, but there was something special about watching him with Rose, the way his rough cowboy exterior melted into complete softness when she smiled at him. The years passed in a blur of growth and change. The ranch prospered, allowing them to buy more land and expand their herd. James grew into a serious boy who loved working with the animals, while Rose was wild and adventurous, always climbing trees or riding her pony at breakneck speeds. Helena found fulfillment in watching her children grow, in the daily rhythms of ranch life, in the deep partnership she shared with Cole. There were hard times too, of course. A drought one summer that made water scarce and grass sparse. A brutal winter that cost them several head of cattle. James broke his arm falling from a horse when he was 8, and Rose caught a fever at 6 that had them terrified until it finally broke. But they weathered every challenge together, their love for each other and their family seeing them through. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Cole took Helena riding up into the hills above their property, to a spot that overlooked the valley and the cabin that had grown into a substantial ranch house. They sat together on a blanket, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Do you ever regret it?" Cole asked, his arm around her shoulders. "Saying yes to me, taking on this life?" Helena leaned into him, comfortable and content. "Not for a single moment. This life, our family, it is everything I never knew I wanted. When I came to Wyoming, I was running from pain and fear, but I found so much more than safety here. I found home. I found love. I found myself. I thank God every day that Tom came to find me that night," Cole said, "that I was able to ride those 40 miles and reach you in time. Everything good in my life stems from that moment, from the choice to get on my horse and go to you." "My hero," Helena teased gently, but there was real affection in her voice. "You saved me that night in more ways than one." "We saved each other," Cole corrected. "You gave me purpose, Helena. A reason to build something lasting. Before you, I was just drifting, working for wages and going through the motions. You made me want more, want better. You made me want to be worthy of you." "You have always been worthy," Helena said firmly. "From the very beginning, you were everything I needed you to be. Honest and kind and true. You never tried to change me or control me. You just loved me, exactly as I was." They kissed as the sun dipped below the horizon, a kiss that held a decade of love and partnership and shared dreams. Behind them, down in the valley, their children were playing in the yard under the watchful eye of the older woman from town who sometimes helped Helena with the house. Smoke rose from the chimney of their home, a beacon of warmth and life. More years passed, bringing more changes. James grew into a young man who took over more of the ranch work, showing a natural talent for breeding and training horses. Rose eventually channeled her wild energy into becoming an accomplished rider, winning races at county fairs and catching the eye of more than one young cowboy. Cole's hair went gray at the temples, and Helena found lines appearing at the corners of her eyes, but their love remained constant. They added a third child to their family when Helena was 38, a surprise baby they had not expected but welcomed with joy. Another son, they named him Robert, and his arrival brought new life to the household. James and Rose adored their baby brother, and even as teenagers they were happy to help care for him. By the time James was 21, he was running most of the ranch operations, giving Cole and Helena time to enjoy the fruits of their labor. They still worked, still contributed, but the desperate urgency of the early years had given way to a more measured pace. They took pleasure in watching their children grow and thrive, in the grandchildren that started arriving when James married a girl from Cody and made them grandparents. On a warm summer evening in 1905, Cole and Helena sat on the porch of their ranch house, watching the sunset much as they had done countless times before. They were in their 60s now, their bodies showing the wear of hard work and long years, but their love was as strong as ever. "Do you remember the night we met?" Helena asked, her hand in Cole's. "Really met, I mean, when you came riding through the dark to warn me about Donnelly." "Like it was yesterday," Cole said. "I was so afraid I would be too late, that something would have happened to you before I could get there. That ride felt like the longest of my life." 40 miles, Helena said softly, as she had said so many times over the years. "You rode 40 miles for me." "I would have ridden 400, Cole replied. "I would have ridden until my horse dropped and then kept going on foot if I had to." "You were worth it then, and you are worth it now. You will always be worth it." Helena felt tears prick at her eyes, the happy tears of a life well lived and love fully expressed. We built something good here, did we not? Something that will last beyond us. We built something great, Cole corrected. Look at our children, our grandchildren. Look at this land we have cared for and improved. This is our legacy, Helena. This love we have shared, this life we have created together. It will echo through generations. They sat in comfortable silence as the stars began to appear, the same stars that had watched over them that first night when everything changed. Inside the house, they could hear the sounds of family, James and his wife putting their children to bed, Rose visiting from town with her husband, young Robert practicing his guitar. "I am so grateful," Helena whispered, "for all of it, the good and the bad, the easy and the hard. Every moment led us here to this life, and I would not change a single thing." Cole raised her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles with the same reverence he had shown on their wedding day. "Neither would I, my love. Neither would I." As the years continued to pass, Cole and Helena remained active in the lives of their family and their community. They became pillars of Cody, respected for their hard work and integrity. The ranch that had started with just a small cabin and a dream had grown into a substantial operation that supported not just their immediate family, but employed several cowboys and provided a good living for everyone involved. Their children grew and had children of their own. James proved to be as steady and capable as his father, expanding the ranch's holdings and reputation. Rose eventually settled down with a man who could match her spirit, and they built a horse breeding operation on land adjacent to the family ranch. Robert, the baby, surprised everyone by becoming a teacher, using his education to help the children of Cody learn to read and write and figure. Cole and Helena lived to see their grandchildren grow up, to hold their great-grandchildren in their arms. They celebrated 50 years of marriage with a party that drew people from across the territory, now the state of Wyoming. There were speeches and toasts, laughter and tears, as friends and family gathered to honor a love story that had become legendary in the community. "Tell us the story again," one of the great-grandchildren asked, a little girl with auburn hair and bright eyes. "About how great-grandpa saved great-grandma from the bad men." Cole and Helena exchanged glances, the kind of wordless communication that came from decades of marriage. Then Cole began the tale, simplifying it for young ears but keeping the essence true. "It was a dark night, and your great-grandmother was in trouble. 3 bad men had come to her cabin, wanting to take it from her. But a good man in town saw them riding out and came to find me. I got on my horse and I rode through the dark as fast as I could because I knew she needed help." "How far did you ride?" the little girl asked, though she had heard the story many times. 40 miles, Cole said, smiling at Helena. "I rode 40 miles through the dark, and I reached her cabin door just before they did something terrible. And you know what? From that moment on, I knew that your great-grandmother was the woman I wanted to spend my life with. She was brave and strong and beautiful, and I fell in love with her right then and there. And they lived happily ever after," the little girl concluded with satisfaction. "That we did," Helena confirmed, her eyes soft with memory and love. "That we did." As the party wound down and family members began to head home, Cole and Helena found themselves alone on the porch once more, watching the stars. Their bodies were old now, their movements slow, but their hands still fit together perfectly. Their hearts still beat in sync. 50 years, Helena mused. "It has gone by so fast." "Best 50 years of my life," Cole said. "And if God grants us another 50, I will count myself the luckiest man alive." Helena laughed softly. "I do not think we will get another 50, my love. But whatever time we have left, I want to spend it just like this. with our family in this place we have built together." "That sounds perfect to me," Cole agreed. They continued to live on the ranch for several more years, though eventually they had to accept help with the daily tasks that had once been so easy. James and his family moved into the main house to care for them, and Cole and Helena took a smaller cottage on the property where they could have privacy, but still be close to help if needed. Helena passed away first, peacefully in her sleep, one autumn night at the age of 78. Cole held her hand as she took her last breath, whispering words of love and promises that they would be together again. He grieved deeply, but he found comfort in the family they had created together, in the legacy of love they had built. Cole lived for 3 more years, long enough to see his youngest great-grandchild born, a boy they named Cole in his honor. He spent his final years telling stories to anyone who would listen, keeping Helena's memory alive in the hearts and minds of their descendants. When Cole finally passed, quietly in his sleep at the age of 81, the whole community mourned. His funeral was attended by hundreds of people whose lives he had touched. They buried him next to Helena in the cemetery outside Cody, under a tall pine tree that overlooked the valley they had both loved so much. The ranch continued to thrive under James's stewardship, and eventually his sons after him. The story of Cole and Helena became family legend, passed down through generations as an example of true love, of courage in the face of danger, of building something lasting through hard work and dedication. The cabin where it all began, Helena's original small home where Cole had arrived that fateful night to warn her of danger, was preserved as a piece of family history. Helena's great-great-grandchildren would visit it, touching the walls and trying to imagine what it must have been like that night when their great-great-grandfather rode 40 miles through the dark to reach the woman he loved. And on quiet nights when the wind blew just right through the valley, some swore they could still feel the presence of Cole and Helena Patterson, the cowboy and the woman who had defied the odds to build a love that transcended time. Their story lived on, a testament to the power of courage, the strength of commitment, and the enduring nature of true love. The ranch house that had grown from Helena's small cabin stood for generations, each expansion and improvement a physical reminder of what two people could build when they loved and trusted each other completely. The garden Helena had first planted with seeds Cole gave her continued to bloom every spring, tended by daughters and granddaughters and great-granddaughters who heard the story and understood that love, like flowers, needed careful tending to truly flourish. James's grandson, another Cole Patterson, eventually wrote down the full story of his great-great-grandparents, interviewing everyone in the family who remembered them and compiling their letters and journals. The account became a cherished family treasure, a reminder to each new generation that love was worth fighting for, worth risking for, worth building a life around. The story of the cowboy who rode 40 miles through the dark to reach the woman he loved became more than just family history. It became part of Wyoming's folklore, a tale told around campfires and in school classrooms, an example of the kind of courage and devotion that defined the best of the frontier spirit. And in the end, that was perhaps Cole and Helena's greatest legacy. Not just the land they had cultivated, or the children they had raised, or the ranch they had built. It was the proof that love, real love, the kind that was patient and kind and brave, could overcome any obstacle. That a man and a woman who chose each other, who committed to building a life together despite the challenges, could create something beautiful and lasting that would echo through time. Their story proved that sometimes the best things in life came from the darkest moments. That courage could come in many forms, from a cowboy willing to ride through danger to protect someone he barely knew, to a woman brave enough to open her heart again after it had been broken. That love was not just a feeling but a choice, made again and again through years of joy and sorrow, triumph and struggle. The ranch still stands today, now in its sixth generation of Patterson family ownership. The land has seen changes, modern conveniences replacing old methods, technology transforming how the work is done. But the heart of it remains the same, rooted in the love story of two people who met in the most unlikely of circumstances and built something remarkable together. On the mantel of the main ranch house sits a small wooden box, carefully preserved and protected. Helena's initials are still visible on the lid, carved there by Cole's hand over a century ago. Inside are dried wildflowers, descendants of the seeds Cole gave Helena that first Christmas, a living link to the past and a promise carried forward into the future. And somewhere in the vast Wyoming sky, in the stars that shine over the land they loved, Cole and Helena Patterson rest together, their story complete, their love eternal. They had faced danger together, built a life together, raised a family together, and grown old together. They had proven that love, true love, was the strongest force in the world. It was a story worth telling, worth remembering, worth passing down through generations. The story of the cowboy who rode 40 miles through the dark and reached her cabin door just before they did. The story of the woman brave enough to love again. The story of two hearts that found each other in the wilderness and built an empire of love that would last forever. Their story was complete, their ending happy, their legacy secure. And in the end, that was all anyone could ask for. A life well lived, a love well expressed, and a legacy that would endure long after they were gone. Cole and Helena Patterson had achieved all of that and more, proving that sometimes, against all odds, true love really does conquer all.